Hello, this is Required Fields, and it's time for another installment in my What's Been Spinning series, where we discuss some of the albums that have been spinning recently. I'm going to start things off with Outre-Tombe, and this is their second album. It's called Vortex. It was released earlier this year. Outre-Tombe is another old school influenced death metal band, so I call them new old school in a sense. They kind of mix the primitive early death metal sounds of Obituary with the early Swedish death metal sound with bands such as Grave and Tomb to Dismember. Their sounds fall somewhere in between those two bands, I would say. Those two styles, the Obituary style and the Swedish death metal style. That would be a pretty good way to describe their sound on this release, which is called Vortex, the second full-length album of theirs. So yes, it's a good release. Outre-Tombe Vortex, definitely worth checking out if you like that style of death metal, of the old school style death metal. And this is Monstrosity, and this is their album, The Passage of Existence. Monstrosity have been around in some form or another for almost 30 years now, and this is only their sixth release. Their first release was 1992's Imperial Doom, which has been out of print for about 20 years now, I'd say, roughly, or close to that, and it somehow has never been reissued for some reason. But anyways, they've continued to record. This is their first album in over a decade. Their last album was 2007 Spiritual Apocalypse. Took over a decade for them to come up with a follow-up, and they followed up with a very solid new release called The Passage of Existence. The two best tracks here would be Dark Matter Invocation, and then there's the absolute best track here is definitely the closing track, the epic closer, Slaves to the Evermore. Fantastic song, which if I was doing a best songs of the year video, that would definitely make my top 10 without a doubt, probably top 5 even. That song is fantastic. Anyways, Monstrosity is one of the most underrated death metal bands of all time, easily. They really, just make sure you get this album if you like death metal, whether it be on vinyl, CD, or even just a digital copy, whatever. Just get this release if you like death metal. Monstrosity is a great band who really needs the support. Next up is a Canadian thrash metal band. This is a band called Besieged. The band plays extreme thrash metal, and this is their this was their debut release, Victims Beyond All Help, from the early 2010s. It was later reissued by Unspeakable Acts Records, which included their self-titled EP, the 2 songs for that as bonus tracks. There's 2 songs called Mind Slave, which is kind of funny because I discussed the band Banshee in a video recently, and did their full-length release, which is also called Mind Slave, so yeah, it's their 7-song full-length debut, which is comparable to bands like Sadus, and the EP, which is more or less in the same style, whereas Banshee, the band I mentioned, is more in a traditional metal vein. Besieged plays extreme thrash metal. Anyways, this is an album called Victims Beyond All Help. Definitely worth getting if you like the more frantic side of thrash metal. Even times some people might say borders on death metal. But yes, that's Besieged, the Victims Beyond All Help. Pretty enjoyable frantic extreme thrash metal album. Next up we have Disciples of Power, and this is their album Invincible Enemy, which was released back in 1993 and has finally been reissued for the first time in about 20 years or so. It had been out of print, but it finally got put back in print recently. The band also reissued their first two albums on another label, of Vic Records, who have actually shown a reissues of in the past as well. They reissued Power Trap, their debut album, last year, and just last month they reissued Ominous Prophecy. So if you, which I would say is their best album, if you if you don't have if you don't have Ominous Prophecy, be sure to get that one. And this is a good one too, Invincible Enemy. It's very dark, semi-technical death metal. Some people compare it to Death at times, and I can see that comparison. although they're a lot darker than Death is for sure. Anyways, this is Invincible Enemy by Disciples of Power. Totally get that album if you actually haven't got that album, because it finally got reissued, and they're a band that never really got their due in the death metal scene. And anyway, so yes, that's another one of the albums I've been spinning as of late. And I'm going to finish this video off with the same band I'm wearing the shirt of, Mass Infection. This is their debut album from 2007 called Atonement for Iniquity. And I own all their albums by this band. I even sporting my The Age of Recreation shirt for this video as well. But Mass Infection, Atonement for Iniquity was their debut album. And since then they have followed it up with two albums that are improved upon the debut. Well, the debut Atonement for Iniquity was a good listen. I do think that they actually did improve upon their later releases with The Age of Recreation and For I Am Genocide. Mass Infection will be releasing their fourth full-length album titled Shadows Became Flesh next month. I already have it pre-ordered, and if you like brutal death metal, comparable to bands such as Suffocation, then I recommend you actually pre-order it as well when it actually comes out. And so yes, those are some of the albums that I have actually been spinning as of late. I hope that you enjoyed this video. This is Required Field signing off, and goodbye.